Good morning.
Good morning.
We're here outside Keil's. We're going to go inside and show you some of the kosher for Passover offerings that we have in our local supermarket. We're going to start right here at the kosher for Passover selections that are right here at the entrance of the store, right by the door. All of the wines and grape juices that are here are kosher for Passover. The Manischewitz, if they're marked kosher for Passover, that's fine. Not everything is. As usual, many of the stores carry marshmallows like these. You have to just make sure that it has a reliable hechsher, which I do not. Oh yeah, so this is Badatz Chassam Sofer and OUP. So, and it's made by Rokeach. You have several reliable things, but if marshmallows are not the main food for Passover, although it seems to be the focus of a lot of the kosher for Passover displays.
Rabbi, there's so many different types of matzahs. How do you choose? What's the kosher for Pesach, for Passover matzah?
So there are a lot of matzahs. You can choose by flavor. There's Manischewitz and Yehuda are very popular. But these ones over here, the gluten-free, although they are kosher for Passover, they're not actually matzah. They taste a little bit like matzah or like Pringles, but either way, they're not actually matzah. They cannot fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. You don't even make hamotzi on them, or even mizonot. You make shahakol. They're made from tapioca, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Oh look, and it says not a replacement for matzah at the Seder.
Look at that.
Look at that.
All right. Also, in the regular kosher aisle, we'll find lots of matzah, I'm sure, but not all of it is kosher for Passover. Some of it will say specifically not for Passover use. You have to make sure that it says kosher for Passover on the matzah box. Edit everything out, okay? We're going to mosey on over to the wine section. We're not going to drink, don't worry. Not yet. Hey, I think there's kosher wines right here. So many of the kosher wines at Keil's are here in the aisle. The Herzogs and the Bartenura, those are all reliable hechsherim. Just make sure it says that it's a reliable. Make sure it's a reliable hechsher, and make sure, of course, that even if it has a reliable hechsher, that it says it's kosher for Passover. Sometimes grains and grain alcohol is used in the production of wine and other spirits. So kosher pickles. So a lot of kosher pickles are actually kosher. You need to look for a hechsher, a reliable certification. But they do need to be kosher for Passover. There's a lot of things that are put in pickles. It's not just cucumber in brine anymore. The meats. So you'll have kosher Empire sliced meats. You have to make sure it says that it's kosher for Passover if you want to buy it for Passover. So this does not seem to.
The side.
And it says OU.
Printed on the side. What does that say?
Sell by? No, OU, glatt kosher. Does not say it's kosher for Passover. And of course these meats have things put in them. They are adulterated. It's not just straight meat. Obviously bolognas are a mixture of meat and other things that could definitely have grain in them. So that would be an issue. Horseradish. So first of all, not all horseradishes are kosher for Passover. And even the ones that are not for the Seder. The Seder has to have, if you're going to use horseradish as maror, it needs to be fresh horseradish, not the toned down, easy to swallow stuff that you get on the shelves. Definitely not cream style horseradish, which is OUD, which means it's dairy. Would probably not fit for the Passover Seder if you're having meat. Anyway, so no, it doesn't look like any of these are kosher for Passover. Sometimes it says on the top or elsewhere on the bottle, and these do not seem to currently. So you want to look for that if you're going to use bottled horseradish for your recipes. Cheeses. Cheeses need to be kosher for Passover. So even a kosher cheese like this one is not kosher for Passover due to the processing.
But the milk, Rabbi, does it not have to be kosher for Passover?
That's a great question. So let's go over to the milk and talk about that.
Rabbi, the orange juice, does it need a hechsher for Passover?
Yes, it does. Interestingly enough, grains are used in preserving the orange juice. So even Tropicana, which has a kosher for Passover line, they will have it printed on the bottle next to the OK. It'll say kosher for Passover, which this does not yet currently have. Okay. Maybe closer to Passover, there'll be more of it.
Rabbi, do the eggs need to be kosher for Passover?
The eggs, absolutely. But all eggs are. They are born in that way. So all eggs are kosher for Passover, and you can buy any kind of egg that you like as long as it's a whole raw egg in the shell. You have no issues. Obviously, the liquid egg products or anything that's already been cooked would be an issue of the materials used or other ingredients adulterated in there.
If I run out of eggs during Passover, I can go and buy more eggs, Rabbi, can I?
There is a problem, according to some opinions, that if the chickens were fed grain, you're buying eggs that were produced from chickens that were fed grain, and that would be an issue. So it is ideal to buy all the eggs you need for Passover before Passover.
Oh, Rabbi, yeah. So we were talking about the milk for Passover. Does that need a hechsher?
So any milk, as long as you don't keep Chalav Yisrael, all milk is kosher for Passover, as long as you buy it before Passover. You cannot buy it on Passover itself, but before Passover you can buy any milk you want. And when you're being mevatel your chametz, when you're annulling the chametz that you have in your possession, that the whatever you bought before Passover is included. You don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. So the milk is fine. That's for cow's milk, correct? Any kosher cow's milk, even unless you keep Chalav Yisrael. The sour creams and the yogurts sometimes have a kosher for Passover symbol. Daisy, I believe, has a kosher run, if I'm not mistaken. It'll say here, so this is kosher, but it does not say kosher for Passover, and it does need to be.
Yogurts, Rabbi?
Yogurts as well. There are brands like Dannon that has in the big tubs, the Dannon yogurt that's unflavored. Okay, real quick, let's go to the drinks. Oh boy, it's taking much longer than I expected. It is? I don't know. So we have 3 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So we're in the drinks aisle, and many of the drinks here are kosher, but not kosher for Passover because of the sweeteners, including corn syrup. So corn syrup for Ashkenazim is not kosher for Passover because corn is considered a kitniot. Even for many Sephardim, that's also true, and also for Sephardim, there is still an issue with the sodas because they use a lot of grain alcohols in the flavoring process. Certain sodas, certain companies have a run for Passover, and one of them is Coca-Cola, and it'll usually say on a bright yellow top that it's kosher for Passover. I don't see it here, so I'm assuming this is not the kosher for Passover Coca-Cola. It costs the same amount as the regular Coca-Cola, so that should be fine. So Coca-Cola and Diet Coke, as long as it has a kosher for Passover symbol, are acceptable sodas. I believe other cities have either Sprite or 7-Up or other brands as well. Seltzer, so water, right here. Waters and flavored waters. So as long as it's not flavored, any water is kosher for Passover.
Seltzer, as long as it's not flavored, would also be kosher for Passover?
That is correct. So once it's flavored, though, because of the grains that are used in the flavoring process, that would make it not kosher for Passover. Pet foods. Pet foods are an issue because even though pets don't have to keep kosher, a pet owned by a Jew still has to keep kosher for Passover, because we're not allowed to even benefit from chametz. We're not allowed to even feed it to our animals. So there's a list I strongly recommend, and I should have recommended this earlier. I strongly recommend people download Rabbi Eidlitz's Kosher for Passover guide, which is found on his website, kosherquest.org. So it has a list there of all the things that are kosher for Passover and a lot of other procedures that are very helpful. The paper plates. Paper plates and paper goods in general are sometimes coated with starch. It'll usually say so. There are people with allergies for it anyway, so you just need to look for it, and if it doesn't say that it's coated with starch, it's not an issue. What some people do anyway is they take off the first couple and don't use them, because if they do use starch, it's they only use it on the outside pieces, the outside plates or such.
Rabbi, if something says that it's gluten-free, does that mean that it's kosher for Pesach?
No, not everything that's gluten-free is kosher for Passover. Some oats are gluten-free, and oats are also one of the 5 grains that are considered chametz.
Okay.
Okay.
Rabbi, how about soaps?
So soap is interesting. Obviously, if it's inedible, it's not an issue. However, you do want dish soap for your dishes, and you want the food on your dishes to be edible. So dish soap should be kosher, and almost all kosher dish soaps are also kosher for Passover. All of the major brands, like Palmolive will have an OU. I think Ajax. I believe most of the major brands that people buy already have a hechsher, and as long as they have a hechsher, you can use them for your dishes year round. If you already, by the way, also an interesting point, if you already have an open bottle of Palmolive in the house, you don't need to buy a kosher for Passover bottle. You can use the one you've been using.
Even the one that's in the kitchen right now?
Obviously, the one in the kitchen right now might have issues, because after all, you've used it with chametz. So if you have a clean bottle that has not been used, you could definitely use that. Thank you for clarifying. No laundry detergent needs a hechsher, but you should not be doing laundry on Pesach anyway for most people, because you're not supposed to do laundry on Yom Tov for sure, or Chol HaMoed, and unless you have a baby. Kosher food. A lot of these are kosher foods, but they will specifically say if it's not for Passover, it'll say not for Passover use. So it is matzah, but not for Passover use. It has been adulterated with other things, in this case eggs and onions, which might make it delicious, but not for Passover. A lot of things are kosher for Passover. The matzah ball mix says OUP. And
horseradish there too.
There's horseradish. Okay, horseradish, good. Kosher for Passover. Is this Passover cake meal is up here. A lot of kosher for Passover products year-round. These yard site candles are inedible. So Passover or not, don't eat them.
Does honey need to be kosher for Passover, Rabbi?
Great question. Let's go back to the honey. So although you'll find a lot of brands that have a hechsher and it says kosher honey and it says it has an OUP, nevertheless, just so you know, as long as it's 100% honey, it does not need a hechsher even, and it's kosher for Passover and year round. Let's talk about quinoa. Let's talk about quinoa for a second. Quinoa is not a grain. So according to most opinions, it is kosher for Passover. The reason that there's any argument about it is because it is grown on the same fields as grain. So you have to be careful to make sure that the quinoa you use does not have any grain in it. Another issue is that it's arguably like kitniot because it can be made into a flour, as we see here. It is usually used as a grain like that, even though it is a berry, and certainly not a grain. That's exactly the point. Even though it's not a grain, everybody thinks of it as a grain, so that's what makes it kitniot. That's one definition of kitniot. Okay, let's get to the oils and such. Oil, if it's extra virgin olive oil, does not need a hechsher, and it's kosher for Passover. So, other oils Other oils would need a hechsher for Passover.
Now, a lot of oils are called the blend.
Yeah, a lot of oils are blended.
Right, so they will have canola oil as a base, and they'll add either the grapeseed or the avocado oil or the olive oil.
Corn oil also, and then with
have
corn.
to be careful not to choose the one that's blended,
Right.
unless it has a kosher for Passover certification.
Correct.
Okay.
Nuts. Nuts, as long as they're whole, as long as they're whole nuts, not
cracked.
Yeah, not cracked.
So walnuts, these walnuts.
These walnuts would need a hechsher for Passover. The raw walnuts at Costco and such, those are fine for Passover as well. Again, those are all on that list from Rabbi Eidlitz that I recommended earlier. Baking soda is kosher for Passover as long as it has a hechsher. Potato starch does need a hechsher for Passover. There could be other starches added inside. Pure cane sugar, as long as it says pure cane sugar, it's kosher for Passover and year round.
But it has this one?
And even and it has a OKP on it, but it does not need it. As long as it's pure cane sugar or pure beet sugar, those are fine. Confectioner sugar can be an issue because things are added to it to thicken it up. Okay, salt. There's iodized salt and there's non-iodized salt. Iodized salt is very healthy. It's good for you. You need the extra iodine. However, it is not kosher for Passover. The addition of the iodine actually adds a grain product, which would make it not kosher for Passover. You have to make sure that the regular salt, not just this brand, but any brand, as long as it's not iodized, is kosher for Passover and year round. There are sugar substitutes that are kosher for Passover, but they need a kosher for Passover symbol on them. Sometimes corn syrup is used as a substitute. Rabbi Gershon Bess in Los Angeles compiles a whole list of which medicines are kosher for Passover. The usual Tylenols and such are all on Rabbi Eidlitz's list, and they do not need a kosher for Passover symbol. Okay, so in the frozen, how do you open this? In the frozen food section here, so they have the gefilte fish, which is kosher for Passover. It does need to be marked kosher for Passover because gefilte fish has, of course, grains in it that holds it together. If it's a whole chicken like this, it does not need to be kosher for Passover because whatever's on it, it can be washed off, and that's fine. Obviously, if it's breaded, obviously not kosher for Passover usually. But here it looks like they used things that you could use for Passover. So it says OUP. Good job, Meal Mart. Good job, Keil's. The beef for stew, because it's cut up into little pieces and might be adulterated, so that needs to be kosher for Passover. These little pieces. Luckily, it says that it here is already kosher for Passover, so that's not a problem. Ice cream needs to be kosher for Passover certified because of the corn syrup that's in it. Okay, let's go to the vegetables. Do vegetables need a hechsher to be kosher for Passover? And the answer is no. All vegetables, as long as they're not chopped up or processed, are kosher for Passover. So lettuce is always an issue. It's not an issue of kosher for Passover, it's an issue of kosher. These leafy vegetables can have bugs in them, and they often do. Thrips and aphids and such, and those are not kosher because they are visible to the naked eye and are usually in these kinds of products. These need to be checked for, need to be washed very carefully. All fruits are kosher for Passover. All vegetables that are whole kosher for Passover. According to most opinions, any kind of coating or anything else that's on the vegetables would be washed off by the regular washing of vegetables that you should do anyway, to get rid of the pesticides and to get rid of any kind of dirt that got onto the vegetable in the field or in the store. So any kind of normal vegetable or fruit eating requires you to wash it anyway. That would get rid of any kosher for Passover issues as well. And now that we're back to our roots in the vegetable and fruit section, I think we're done with our Passover tour. And I want to thank Keil's, and I want to thank Brian, the manager here, who allowed us to film. And I want to thank my camera person and my Rebbetzin. Thank you very much.